Okay. So, who are you and what role do you play at the hospital?
So my name's Leanne Armitage. I'm a junior doctor. I'm also the co-founder of a charity called the Armitage Foundation, which is a charity that's committed to increasing diversity across UK medical schools. And this is absolutely necessary because half of the schools across the UK don't produce a single medical applicant. Across UK medical schools, less than 5% of the students are coming from the most disadvantaged backgrounds. And I believe that the NHS workforce has to reflect the diverse society it serves in order to provide the most effective healthcare. And in the hospital, I'm a junior doctor, foundation year 1. So I've just started about just over 2 months ago now.
How are you finding it?
It's been interesting. I've had wonderful moments, I've had challenging moments. I think for the most part, I'm definitely enjoying it. And yeah, it's just amazing sometimes. Even when I think about it, at the beginning of the year, you were still a med student, now you're a doctor, and the roles are completely different. Even though you're well supported as a junior doctor, you still do have a lot of responsibility. So it is a big jump from medical school.
Where are you from?
Yeah, so in terms of my cultural heritage, my father's from Sierra Leone, so in West Africa, and my mother's from Yorkshire, so the north of England. And I grew up in London my whole life. I'm from southeast London. I basically live between Camberwell and Peckham. Or used to live. I now live in Gillingham.
What brought you to Medway?
Yeah, so the honest answer is that, so when you finish medical school, you rank where you want to be placed. And I chose the Deanery of South Thames, which includes the South Coast, some parts of London. And then you rank the different jobs within that. And so I ended up being selected for Medway, and then I'll spend my second year in Brighton. So that's what brought me here.
So you'll only be in Medway
for a year, yeah.
And then moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you like about Medway Maritime Hospital?
I think what I love about Medway is that it's very culturally diverse. I've seen doctors from all different countries, and I like the community spirit that I feel here. As a junior doctor as well, it's sometimes been really challenging when you feel like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? And I've never been in a moment when I haven't had somebody that I can reach out to. And I've always, for the most part, felt very comfortable contacting my seniors or asking for their advice or help. So that's definitely one of the things I've really enjoyed about Medway.
But if you could change one thing about the hospital,
yeah,
what would you change?
So I haven't been here for too long. But I think one of the things I would change is I would have extended the shadowing period that we had as junior doctors. We had 3 days, and I spent a lot of that time trying to access the different clinical systems and trying to shadow as much as I could. So I think if that was longer, that would have been helpful. But then at the same time, I think when you're about to start as a junior doctor, even if you had 2 weeks, you might still not feel ready. So yeah, maybe a balance somewhere in between.
Yeah, because it's all learning new systems,
yeah,
as well as the medical
as well as everything. Exactly, changes on all fronts.
Yeah. What has been the biggest challenge in your career?
I think there have been different challenges, but one of the biggest challenges would have definitely been juggling all the different hats that I do, or wearing all the different hats that I do. So as I said, I'm a co-founder of a charity. I have been a medical student and now a recently qualified doctor. I also do public speaking, other commitments outside. Yeah, so I think balancing all of those things has been quite challenging, especially through medical school. I remember coming back from amazing events where I had really great opportunities, but feeling quite guilty that, oh my God, I haven't revised enough. And if I'm honest, it did affect me academically. My grades, I was still passing exams, thank God, but my grades were starting to drop because of all these extracurricular things. But at the same token, I feel like just as a medic, you know, we save lives, if you want to use that phrase, or we really help to restore people to health. I feel like my outside work for diversity, for inspirational speaking and empowering people is another way of impacting lives and in some cases saving lives by giving people that hope, you know, to keep going on.
Yeah, and also being a role model.
Yeah.
That's also important.
Yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I think the one piece of advice I'd give, I think I'd reassure myself that you are on the right track. Keep going. You know, you're doing great. Keep going. And the reason I say that is because I think most medics have a bit of a perfectionist mentality where you're always trying to be the best and do the best. And, you know, with that mentality, sometimes it can be quite unhealthy because you're aspiring for great things and you're reaching those, but then there's something else. Or it's like you're never really completely content. And I think I would tell myself that you're doing just fine, you know? Enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you always want to be a medic?
It's actually an interesting story. So when I was 15, I decided that I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. Bold decision to make, hey? There's a backstory to it. I was coming home one day with my sister and I heard the propellers of a helicopter. And I love helicopters, so I got so excited. So I saw that the helicopter was descending on a grass field in the middle of a huge estate close to where I lived. So I asked my sister if we could go to watch it land, and she said yes. So I went there with all this excitement, excited to see a helicopter landing. And then I saw a crowd of people and their facial expressions didn't match the excitement I had. So I asked a lady in the crowd what had happened, and she said a young man had been stabbed. And growing up in Peckham, it wasn't uncommon to hear this person got shot or this person got stabbed. But there was something really... there was something about this particular incident that hit me hard, and I think it's because I went from that emotional high to a low because I realised it hadn't landed for any good reason at all. And I remember feeling angry, thinking everybody's just standing here watching, but who is going to do something? Then I felt disempowered because I thought, well, what can I do? But then after really thinking about it that evening, I decided that if I aspired to become a trauma surgeon, that would give me a platform to go into environments where young men are victims of knife and gun crime in the hope of inspiring them to be and to do better. So that was how it started. And there were so many challenges I needed to overcome because I come from a very non-traditional background compared to other medics. So it was a struggle at the beginning in particular.
And is that background why then you looked
at
the charity for diversity?
Exactly.
I'd like to hear more about that. How did you set that up?
Yeah, exactly. So just to give you a bit of context, I come from a single parent household. My mother didn't go to university, didn't understand how to navigate the higher education system. Out of my mother's 5 children, only one other went to university. There were no medics in my social network. So it was really something different that I was aspiring to. But I set myself the goal of achieving 10 A stars after doing a Google search of what I'd need to do, managed to receive that, got a bursary. So went to boarding school for my 6th form education. Then I got rejected when I first applied to medical school, despite getting the A-level grades I needed and doing all the work experience, etc. Decided that I'd reapply because I was so determined this is what I wanted to do. And then when I got to medical school, after the 2nd year of medical school, I remember coming to the realization at the lack of diversity. And I remember feeling like, as a student coming from this background, I understand, I know some of the challenges these students are facing and why they're experiencing it. And so I felt like I had some of the answers. And so I decided to set up what initially was just a medical outreach program, which I did at my old secondary school 6th form. Following that, I was working with A-level students and they hadn't got the GCSE grades they needed. They hadn't had the work experience. They were way behind. So I thought this intervention needs to be younger. So I applied to my university for funding and they gave us that. So then it went out to 3 schools. And then I eventually registered it as a charity and got an award from the Queen actually because of it, which was just crazy. Yeah, that was really amazing.
And what's happening with the charity now?
So actually, I'm so grateful. We've recently received some funding which will allow us to be sustainable for 2 more years. And we're in the process of potentially forming a partnership with a university in London, which would be really good if that goes ahead. And because of COVID, we've had to put our program online, or at least we're in the process of doing that transition. And our vision is to create a diverse medical workforce. We're based in London at the moment, but we would like to just really have sustainable foundations and a sustainable business model set up so that we can do that that expansion horizontally. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you for having me.
So that's like the end of the official interview. I'm really interested in this because I come from a working class background and I have a massive chip on my shoulder about it, and I know that medical schools are the most homogenous of any university cohort. And of course, if you're surrounded by people who are all the same as you stop asking questions.
Yeah.
Because everybody will, it's an echo chamber, essentially. How difficult did you find it as someone who didn't come from that background to fit in, or did you just?
I think this is a really interesting question, because when I was at secondary school, when I found out I got the bursary to study at boarding school, which was obviously a private boarding school, I remember one of my teachers saying, "Oh, now you're going to the other side of life," and I really didn't understand what she meant by that. But when I got to boarding school and just saw the complete cultural difference, and I found it quite challenging integrating into that. But I think even though overall I had a great experience, there were challenges related to me integrating. But I feel like that kind of prepared me for university, because when I went to university, it didn't feel that different. But also St. George's of the medical schools, I think that is also quite a diverse university generally as well. So it wasn't as challenging for me to integrate into the medical school at St. George's as it was for me to integrate into the sixth form community, I'd say. But I know that that experience is not the same for all medical schools, because in other medical schools, the diversity is a lot, it's not as good.
Yeah. And I mean, that point about the intervention coming a lot earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing one of the issues you've got is the same as your family, very much the same as my family. If nobody's ever gone to university, you don't necessarily understand how hard you've got to work if you want something like a career in medicine, a career in some of these really high competitive places. Yeah. And finding the support for that level of studying, because I mean, did you ever get bullied because you were working hard for that?
Definitely. In sixth form, I did have some encounters where I felt judged, or there was one guy in my boarding house that used to say some comments that were a bit inappropriate. So I did have challenges in that sense. When I got to medical school, no, I didn't experience that. I think one of the things I learned as well is that sometimes if it's an issue to you, then it becomes an issue to others. For example, if you carry yourself with confidence and you're proud of your background, even if it is considered to be, in people's opinions, bad, or they have their stereotypes, if you're proud about it, then it's a lot harder for people to try to bring you down. But if you're acting insecure, then sometimes people, they kind of respond to that insecurity and will treat you that way. And I think the sixth form version of me was insecure, and so people were responding to that. Whereas now I take pride in where I come from, because I recognize that, if anybody should be celebrated, the person who's overcome challenges should be celebrated more so than the person that was just born into privilege, Yeah.
So how do you think you can improve the confidence of kids in school?
Exactly, and that's one of the key things my foundation is also trying to work on, because if you don't have confidence, you're going to restrict your ability to achieve your goals, because you have to have the confidence to apply. You have to have the confidence to really take up the opportunities that are going to help to develop you into a candidate that is going to stand a good chance of getting into medical school or succeeding in any area. So confidence building is a process. It's not really something that can happen overnight, but some of the simple things we do, for example, include at the beginning of our sessions, we have like an inspirational quote that will say something like, "It doesn't matter where you come from, it's where you're going to." And we'll ask the students, what does this mean to you? And then have a discussion. And also just the fact that they're seeing doctors who are relatable to them, who understand their challenges. Exactly, taking them into university environment, allowing them to speak to doctors in an informal way. For some of these students, their only interaction with a doctor would be at the GP surgery. So just having a normal chat and seeing that, hey, these doctors are normal people, some of them are even quite cool, it helps to break down stereotypes, and that in and of itself will help to improve confidence for the students, because they can see themselves in that role now.